Welcome back. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and U.S. President Barack Obama may have held an equitable meeting last month, but the administration's view of the Israeli leader is apparently far from flattering. And on the Palestinian side, support is growing for more violence against Israel, while President Mahmoud Abbas faces his own political problems. The News Today's diplomatic correspondent Eli Hochenberg has the details.
The Obama administration has been frustrated for a long time now from the Israeli government's attitude towards the peace process, or more accurately, the lack of thereof. But since the fence-mending meeting between the American president and the Israeli premier last month in Washington, it seems the White House no longer attempts to hide its criticism, with the U.S. top diplomat John Kerry sparing no harsh words. This is how he sounded only 2 weeks ago.
The fact is that current trends, including violence, settlement activity, demolitions, are imperiling the viability of a two-state solution. And that trend has to be reversed in order to prevent this untenable one-state reality from taking hold.
But on Monday, the rhetoric was even tougher. In an interview to The New Yorker, Kerry said that Israel is heading towards becoming a, quote, unitary state that is an impossible entity to manage, wondering if the ultimate goal of the country is to become a, quote, one big fortress. In the behind-the-scenes, off-record briefings of Kerry's advisors, the picture is even dimmer. They view Benjamin Netanyahu as short-sighted and untrustworthy. At this time and age, the State Department sees no chance of moving forward in solving the conflict, warning again from the horror scenario in which the Palestinian Authority collapse. While Washington is giving up and putting the blame almost solely on Jerusalem, the motion in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip is very clear. A thorough survey among Palestinians reveals that 67% support the knife intifada, in which lone wolf attackers terrorize the streets of Israel, and 66% believe that if the recent wave of terror develops into a large-scale intifada, it will benefit the Palestinian cause much more than diplomatic negotiations. The trust and support in Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has been generally declining for a while, with 65% wanting him to resign, and if elections were held right now, Abbas would have lost to Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh with 41% of the votes and 51% respectively. In the West Bank, where Abbas rules, the dissatisfaction is even bigger, with him receiving 37% of support vis-a-vis 53% for Haniyeh. The current dreadful state for both sides simply emphasizes the fact that the lack of diplomatic process is not only not making things better, but undoubtedly making them worse.
Making them worse. And to talk about that more is Avi Sakharof, Middle East analyst. Good evening, Avi.
Good evening.
And our diplomatic correspondent for the News Today, Eli Hochenberg. Good evening, Eli.
Good evening, Ayman.
Now, Avi, this seems to be just the latest in a series of bad news for Mahmoud Abbas. Recently, we heard of protests calling for his resignation. Now, this survey shows 65% want him gone in Gaza. If he is gone, if we try to imagine what happens, will there be an Islamist rise in the region after Abbas?
I'm not sure, we're playing here with guesses. I think it's bad news for, of course, the Palestinian Authority, for Mahmoud Abbas, but probably more than anyone else, it's the State of Israel. State of Israel needs the Palestinian Authority and needs Mahmoud Abbas. And without Abbas, we're going to face a kind of a vacuum. And we don't know who will step into this vacuum, whether it's going to be Hamas, maybe another Israeli occupation of the Palestinian cities, or more radical Islamic forces like ISIS-affiliated and others. So we don't know what will happen then. We only can guess that it's going to be very bad news for everyone.
And on that background, how can we explain these data that Eli just showed us that Hamas is strengthening? How is that possible?
Hamas is strengthening in the West Bank, no doubt about that. I think that what happened here in the last two and a half months was a miracle for Hamas. Why? Because most of the Palestinian public doesn't believe in two-state solution. And the whole agenda of the PLO and Fatah was about a two-state solution. So if the agenda of the PLO, the competitor, the enemy, the political enemy of Hamas, had failed, meaning that maybe the agenda, Hamas's agenda, is the one that needs to take over. Now, I'm not that sure that the Palestinian public is so much enthusiastic about Hamas either, but my feeling is that right now they look at Hamas in a better way than they look at Fatah.
Well, Eli, speaking of the two-state solution, John Kerry seems more desperate than ever recently. He's made some serious, grave statements against Israel and the Palestinians, something that's unusual from him to hear. It seems that desperation is no longer behind closed doors when it comes to these diplomatic negotiations.
No, not at all. And the thing is that the hopeful Kerry, for many years now, whenever he had, a controversial statements, his advisors tried behind the scenes to cool down the atmosphere and undermine such controversial statements. But recently, we see that they're not only undermining his statements, but standing firm behind them and adding some more. They briefed reporters that the latest frustration revolves around Kerry's latest visit in Jerusalem and Ramallah, where he hoped to see a minimal breakthrough, something small from both sides, mainly some economic gestures on behalf of Israel towards the Palestinians. But even though we've seen the fence-mending meeting between Netanyahu and Obama, during which Netanyahu showed some willingness to move forward towards the Palestinian when it comes to economic gestures, nothing happened on the ground, and Kerry was highly, highly frustrated. But the thing is that Kerry met a very frustrated Palestinian Authority, and this is something that really brought him down a bit more. He sees no hope, no desire, or no true belief in the two-state solution on behalf of the Palestinians at the moment, and with Israel not cooperating in any sort of level, and the Palestinian desperate more than ever before, Kerry himself is obviously trapped in between, and as you said, probably more desperate than any other time we've seen him in the past.
And Avi, just finally, Eli says that there's desperation on the Palestinian side as well. If they have largely given up on the two-state solution, is there a future for talks with Israel?
Well, general directions in the public opinion might change, and it's up to the leadership. And at the end of the day, it's very easy for the Prime Minister to talk this evening and to say that most of the Palestinian public had gave up the option of two-state solution. I wonder why did it happen? I wonder how, in this miraculous way, the Palestinians gave up the idea of two-state solution. And Netanyahu doesn't ask himself this question. Netanyahu doesn't ask himself the question of what kind of a future do I see for the state of Israel? He doesn't give us the answer for where is Israel going to be in 10 years or 15 years. I think that bottom line, if we will see both sides, both leaderships, serious about dealing with each other, about negotiating with each other, it might change the Palestinian public opinion. It might change even the Israeli public opinion that is more desperate than the Palestinian one.
Just before we go, to mention that the survey questioned a vast majority of 18 to 22-year-old Palestinians, which mean the Oslo generations, and as we've seen, most of them want to ditch the Oslo Agreement, meaning a hopeless generation, which is very, very sad.
Yes, Avi Sakharov and Eli Hohenberg, thank you very much. Though very discouraging data, we will keep the faith and try and have you here back to tell us, hopefully, more meaningful and happy data.
Amen.